recession will be delayed because the Fed has raised too quickly. Okay, I think maybe that's more of a statement. And yeah, so I think what you're saying there is the recession, in your view, is likely delayed because of corporate debt, them being in a decent position there. And yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of factors that go into it. You know, I responded to a tweet from my good friend Daniel DiMartino Booth that was talking about kind of, you know, no one's in the recession camp anymore. And I said that because people think that, oh, that yield curve, it must be invalid, it must be dead, because it started to predict a recession, you know, months ago, and we haven't seen a recession, so this time it must be different. When if you actually just go back and look at history, you see that this time it's not different. This cycle is playing out the way every single cycle, pretty much, not everyone, but the majority of them have played out before. And that is that, you know, prior to the recession, you get the unemployment rate being very low, you get stocks going up, assets, you know, you get this narrative that this time it's different, and that, you know, there's pretty much ignoring the yield curve. I mean, one really cool thing that I was able to do a couple weeks ago was get access to archived editions of the Wall Street Journal. And specifically, I wanted to go back and read about the 1940s and actually read in real time, you know, what was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. What were they talking about in 1947 when the headline CPI got to 19%? What were they talking about 2 years later when it got down to -2? What were they talking about when World War II? What were they talking about with price controls and with the Federal Reserve, you know, doing yield curve control? I wanted to read about it in real time. But one of the things that I noticed in looking at Wall Street journals from the dot-com bust prior to that recession in 2001 and the GFC is that they were saying the exact same things that they're saying today. It was no different. And if you look at how, when the yield curve inverts and how long it usually takes for them, well, it takes even longer for them to announce the recession, but for the recession to even start, it's usually at least 18 months. And it doesn't happen until the curve is no longer inverted. So it just makes no sense to me that this time it's different when we're seeing it play out exactly. It's like before, these people assume, and we're talking about quote unquote experts. It's like these people assume that as soon as the yield curve inverts, that the stock market just crashes. And if it doesn't crash, well, then obviously this time it's different. No, it never does that. It never does that. We never really see the stuff hit the fan until the curve is no longer inverted. That's the way it plays out over and over and over and over again. But just because it's playing out that way this time, people ignore history and assume that it's different. And it's not. It's not. So my point there is, yeah, there's a lot of factors that are delaying the recession, but is it really delayed? I mean, we really won't know that if it's delayed. I would say that if you don't have a recession or the stuff hitting the fan, before like Q2 or so of 2024, then I would say it's delayed. But right now, if it happened now, it would actually be early relative to what has happened in the past when you get that inversion of the curve. But to your point, there's like millions of variables that we should consider, and what you mentioned there with corporate debt is definitely one of them.